In the 1940s, the logging industry faced a revolution. Unions didn't just hesitate. They actively fought to ban the new, dangerous, and loud technology changing their woods forever. Why were these rugged men so terrified of the chainsaw? And what finally forced the axe to surrender to the engine? Before the internal combustion engine took over the forest, logging ran on a completely different rhythm, literally. The two-man crosscut saw produced a steady, back-and-forth pulse that veteran loggers described as almost meditative. This wasn't just a job, it was a full-body craft. Felling a massive Douglas fir or redwood took supreme physical endurance, a partner who understood your exact timing, and a blade filed to a razor edge that had to be maintained by hand. Being a lumberjack in the early 20th century meant mastering geometry, weight distribution, and teamwork under real danger. It was slow, it was brutal, and it was the only way anyone knew how to do it. That slowness wasn't a flaw to the men who did the work. It was the point. Skill, patience, and partnership were what separated a real logger from an amateur, and that identity was about to be challenged by a machine that needed none of those things. When early chainsaws started appearing in logging camps, the resistance wasn't really about the tool itself. It was about what the tool represented. For generations, a logger's worth was measured in stamina, precision, and the ability to read a tree with a partner at your side. A machine that let one man do the work of two, without decades of trained skill, didn't just threaten jobs. It threatened an entire identity built around physical mastery. Many veteran loggers saw the chainsaw the way an old craftsman might see a machine that could mass-produce something they'd spent a lifetime learning to make by hand. Technically faster, but fundamentally dishonorable. It removed the very things that made the job respectable in their eyes. The endurance, the partnership, the earned skill. In many camps, experienced loggers believed that relying on a machine meant the operator hadn't truly earned the right to call themselves a woodsman. Reputation in the logging community had always been built through years of hard physical labor, and many feared that tradition would disappear almost overnight. That emotional resistance is often the part modern viewers miss entirely, and it's exactly what makes this story so much more interesting than old tool versus new tool. Underneath the cultural resistance was a much colder, more practical fear. Math. If one man with a chainsaw could do the work of a two-man crosscut team, logging companies suddenly needed fewer workers to hit the same production numbers. For unions built on protecting jobs and negotiating power in numbers, that was an existential threat, not a hypothetical one. Fewer required workers meant less leverage at the bargaining table and fewer paychecks going home. So, logging unions in the 1940s didn't quietly grumble about the new technology. They actively organized against it, treating the chainsaw less like a tool upgrade and more like a direct threat to their entire workforce. In some regions, companies introducing chainsaws faced organized pushback, with crews refusing to adopt the machines or demanding guarantees that workers wouldn't immediately lose their jobs. This wasn't stubborn nostalgia. It was a rational, if ultimately temporary, defense of livelihoods that were about to be permanently reshaped by machinery. Here's the part that made the resistance easier to justify at first. Early chainsaws genuinely weren't very good. They were heavy, often requiring two people just to operate safely, prone to mechanical failure and dangerous in ways the forest hadn't seen before. For a while, sticking with the tried-and-true crosscut saw wasn't just cultural stubbornness. It was arguably the smarter operational choice. Reliability mattered when your livelihood and your safety depended on the tool in your hands every single day. Fuel systems leaked. Chains required frequent adjustment, and breakdowns in remote forests could bring an entire day's work to a halt. This is a crucial detail most retellings skip entirely. The chainsaw didn't win because it was obviously superior from day one. It won because it was forced to get better, fast, while the world around the logging industry was changing in ways nobody could hold back. Everything changed after 1945. Soldiers came home needing houses. Suburbs exploded outward at a pace the country had never seen. Cities expanded, construction boomed, and the demand for lumber didn't just rise, it skyrocketed almost overnight. The old rhythm of the two-man crosscut saw simply could not keep up with that kind of national demand. Companies were suddenly stuck between two bad options: stay loyal to the traditional, union-approved method and lose massive market share, or modernize quickly and risk open conflict with their own workforce. Sawmills needed more logs, railcars needed more timber, and builders needed materials faster than forests had ever supplied them before. The economic pressure of the post-war housing boom did something years of union resistance couldn't prevent. It made the chainsaw not just useful, but unavoidable. Technology didn't have to argue its case anymore, the market did it for them. The real proof came from the numbers. Logging camps that switched to chainsaws in the mid-1940s saw productivity climb dramatically compared to crews still relying on handsaws. Output that once took a full team an entire day could now be matched in a fraction of the time by far fewer workers. Once one company demonstrated that kind of productivity gap, competitors couldn't afford to stay behind, out of loyalty to tradition. The industry reached a tipping point where refusing to modernize no longer protected jobs. It simply made companies less competitive. The shift stopped being a debate about culture or fairness and became simple business survival. Within a remarkably short window, the tool that unions had once tried to ban became the industry standard almost everywhere. So the chainsaw didn't win because loggers suddenly changed their minds about honor, skill, or tradition. It won because history rarely waits for anyone to be ready. Do you think we're living through a similar moment of disruption right now, in your own industry, or even a hobby you care about? Is there a new piece of technology today that feels like cheating the way the chainsaw once did? Let me know in the comments. I read everyone. And if stories like this, where old-world skill collides head-on with new machinery, are your kind of thing, subscribe for more deep dives into the tools and turning points that quietly built the modern world.